Hello, my name is Aaron Kavanagh and I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Post-Burnout.com. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. This is our website's podcast where we publish full-length recordings of our interviews, which are sometimes the unedited versions of our site's articles and at other times are exclusives. If you're a returning listener, thank you for coming back, and if this is your first time listening, thank you for checking us out. We hope you enjoy and consider subscribing, giving the episodes a thumbs up if you're on YouTube, or giving it a rating if you're anywhere else. It really helps us out. Thank you. Alright, in this edition of Post-Burnout.com interviews, Jasmine Rodgers, the frontwoman of the British indie band BOA, discusses the band's reformation, going viral after 2 decades away, making their comeback record Whiplash, getting back to touring, how the music industry has changed in their lifespan, how she differentiates between what should be a BOA song and a song for her solo career, and much more. On June 10th, BOA will begin their largest UK and Ireland tour to date. It kicks off at the New Century Hall in Manchester, and on the 14th the band will return to Dublin for their largest headlining show here at the National Stadium. Tickets for that show are available in the description of this episode. Thank you very much and enjoy.
Oh,
Hi Jasmine, how's it going? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. How are you doing?
I'm very well. It's very nice to meet you. How are you?
Dear Ditch.
Oh, did Tom make him on?
I'm learning Gaelic on Duolingo really
Oh.
badly.
I assume it'd be better than mine. I'm not very well versed in the Irish language, unfortunately.
Neither am I, clearly, so it's fine. Anyway,
um,
nice to meet you.
it's very nice to meet you too. I want to start actually by clarifying something that I've been kind of reading about the Reformation of Boa, and that is that part of the catalyst was the virality that Duvet has had on TikTok as sort of being a motivator to kind of bring the project back. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say so, because basically the record label would like, do you want to release some more stuff, like some back catalogue, or, maybe do you want to write an album? And we always like, yeah, let's write an album. That would be really cool. And actually, a couple of years before that, we did a 21 years of Duvet little video thing. And when we were playing it, we started jamming around Duvet. So we knew we still had something to do with each other to create. So that was kind of like why we were like, yeah, I think we could write something else. Yeah.
As someone like yourself who's been in the music industry for a while now, I mean, you've worked in ball, you've also had your own separate career as well. I was wondering, like, when you look at it, like, because my understanding for the song's inclusion on the anime, I wrote it down because I wouldn't remember offhand.
Serial experiments.
Serial Experts
Yep.
Lane. My understanding about the inclusion of that was just kind of like by happenstance, and then many years later, it just resurges in a way that's kind of out of your control. I was wondering, do you think success? How much of success do you think is about like dedication and grinding and all this stuff, and actually trying to kind of get yourself known versus how much of it's just kind of random dumb luck?
I would say I don't know. All I know is that I can be confident in knowing that we did all the hard grafting and all the hard work when we did the first album, and we worked really hard. We were like a band. For how many years? We'd already been together for about 5 or 6 years by the time we wrote Twilight album. So, we'd already been doing the kind of like meeting up every week, and it was social as well, meeting up every
Yeah.
weekend, and like rehearsing. We didn't have socialize. Our socialize was the band. And so I know that we put the work in and the hours in, so I can kind of, and I think there was always a bit of a heartache of like, oh, I wish it had done better. And then when it started to do really well, it was almost like, oh, we found our audience, rather than it being like, oh, we got like, well, of course we got massively lucky, but it's also just kind of the nature of the beast that it went out and it met people who were willing to receive it was kind of really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I,
some luck is basically the answer. Absolutely.
I have to ask because I see the Akira poster behind you. Were you a fan of anime prior to that?
You know what? I'm in my nephew's room.
Okay.
But when I left home, we had like this was a really long time ago, so we only had a few films, and
Yeah.
Akira was one of them that we watched on repeat. So there you go.
um, I also want to ask because like I was reading another interview with you and they were kind of asking what was like a motivator for you in terms of like regrouping and you kind of mentioned that like really it was the songs that kind of drove it as well. Like, you know, obviously like as you mentioned with network there, like you have these opportunities that kind of arise when there's attention on you, but for you it seemed like like this regrouping wouldn't have happened if you didn't have like a new album in mind. I think it's interesting because like there are plenty of artists who will kind of regroup after a long sabbatical who kind of are content to tour around playing the old hits, and you know if a new album eventuates that's great, and if not we can sort of rely on the old hits. But for you is that always just like you didn't want to bring the project back unless you had something for it?
I think it was the curiosity. We were given an opportunity and we were just curious to see what we'd come up with. We had no idea that we'd be touring. We had no idea that we'd end up like touring around the States and Australia and Europe and Turkey and I think we're still a bit shocked, a bit tired. And I think so none of this was in any way like calculated. It was more like, oh, they're interested, and we're curious to see what we could come up with. And after about 9 months or something, our A&R person, who's absolutely lovely, Samir, he reached out and he's like, "So, have you written anything?" Because we'd forgotten to let him know, and we were like, "Oh yeah, here's the album."
Yeah.
It was quite funny, and it was like, "Come and listen, this is it's fun." So yeah, it was really just seeing like if we could, and it was all done very very gently and kind of very much like in an exploratory way because we've all lived really different lives now and as you rightly said, I've done my solo music, so in my world I was singing sort of folky, gentler style of singing, and then suddenly I'll get this opportunity to sing like big again and like hard again and stuff, and it was really good fun. So yeah, and also when I do solo music, I'm inevitably sitting on a chair.
Yes.
I don't get to move around and do all of that stuff. But I still get my head around using pedals. I've been known to press mute when I'm meaning to hit the overdrive. So
Actually, when you came back to the band, did you have to like relearn the old songs? Was there any kind of like learning curve,
yeah.
or was it just very natural?
No, we had to relearn them. I had to kind of like over the years, I'd kind of slightly misremembered the lyrics, or in fact slightly rewritten them in the sense of
Yeah.
like what suits my brain now. And so I had to relearn them again. So that was quite funny. And I think as well, one nice thing that had happened was during the pandemic, which wasn't a nice thing, but I was I was doing a sort of weekly little thing, and
Yeah.
I was doing my solo stuff and telling jokes because I do that with my own stuff. But and so I was reaching out to everybody in the band and saying, how do I play this? So everybody was kind of like getting that thing, slightly oiling the wheels a bit. So I was fortunate enough to be able to ask my brother, like, how do I play this thing? And, that kind of stuff. So we kind of were already beginning to kind of remember a little bit. Yeah.
As a songwriter, how do you kind of discern between the songs that are right for you as a solo artist versus what's right for the band?
It can be tricky because some of the acoustic stuff is quite sort of similar to my stuff, but I think Alex's songwriting skills, the way he sort of does the structure is he brings in something which I really have enjoyed, that's kind of, and Lee's drumming as well, like the power that they bring to it means that I can relax on some things. I don't need to play as much on some things. I don't need to sing as much necessarily. Or I can sing even bigger because it's going over a bigger arc that's louder, and the impact could be stronger. So I guess that way it kind of tells me that it's song for this and not song for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have to ask when Bo initially broke up in the mid 2000s, yeah, my understanding is that it was all like very amicable. People just wanted to kind of go their own way. But at that time, were you kind of like I guess satisfied with where it ended, or did you always kind of think, okay, there's something more to be worked on down the line, or
I think we put so much effort into it, and we were so dedicated to it, and we put everything on hold. And I was in the band from when I was just 15, just turning 16, and so I wanted to be able to go and do stuff. My mates were going traveling or anything really, and I was like,
yeah,
so I kind of wanted to, just explore that a bit. And I know everybody else did. I know, Paul went on to lecture. sound engineering as well, and everybody basically just had that moment in time to kind of rethink, is that what you want to do? Because when you're really committed, it can take so much out of you. You pour it in. So yeah. So
And
I
then
think
like,
I think
sorry.
sorry, in terms of the music business, yes, I wish that they'd released Twilight in the UK, but they didn't. So fine, it's out there now.
Yeah, you can listen to it now.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah, actually, that's the interesting because like I know with like the music you've released over the years. I mean, there's been like different versions based on regions, and there's been like re-releases and some albums pulled and things like that. I mean, I don't know. Do you find like I don't know, it's constantly like reworking even like after you think something is set in stone. I don't know, the order of your discography kind of gets rejigged.
Well, it would seem so, wouldn't it? Except, I
Yeah.
mean, there was a couple of demos we did before we did I think, and that got put out online without really the rest of the band necessarily thinking that should go out online.
Yeah.
But people seem to like it, and we're like, really? Okay, cool. That's great. Let's just think about that though, because we were quite kind of determined that Twilight was going to be how our first album and how we wanted to be seen. So, in that way, in terms of the discography, Race of a Thousand Camels is kind of Twilight in many ways. So I guess it's yeah, I guess I see what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know. Yes, I think you have to become a little bit flexible. Like back in the day, a sped up version, I would have been aghast, and now I'm like, yeah, it makes perfect sense. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so you're just getting to learn to use to 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 see how the music is used in a completely different way. And I've said it before, but what I really like is like, and it's really nosy of me, but when people use our music in like Instagram or whatever on reels or stories, and you're like, oh, that's a memory that they've attached to that. That's kind of beautiful. And that's a love, just it doesn't inform what we do, but it's a lovely thing that you can see. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, and also like one big thing that I think has kind of really changed, like in the years since that have elapsed since the project's been going, is that the music industry's changed so much, and through the internet and through advancements in technology, kind of everyone could be a musician and get their stuff out there on an international scale, just by one upload to like DistroKid or something. So I was wondering, one thing I noticed that like back in the day, in order to kind of get seen, you'd have to be on like, Radio One, or you'd have to get on like Top of the Pops or what have you. Like it's these centralized means of getting seen. Now, I mean, it seems like there's, many different ways, many different avenues to kind of get seen, or to get notoriety for your music. But I was wondering at the same time, I mean, with the lack of that kind of centralized control, it seems like people are kind of dispersed and just sort of like there's so much stuff out there and so many different avenues and things like that. So I was wondering how you feel about like navigating that in terms of like those kind of centralized models sort of elapsing.
Um,
Sorry,
I
that was long-winded on my end.
Yeah, I think the question is like, how do we
Well,
feel?
I think like as I was saying, on the one hand, like those centralized models of getting your music seen have kind of gone away, and that's beneficial in some ways because there's other avenues. But on the other hand, there's such a sea of stuff out there that I guess, do you think it's more beneficial now versus then?
I think it's more beneficial because it's more democratic in the sense of,
Yeah.
well, I mean, slightly more democratic because you can put your stuff out online and you probably could, build your community if you're clever, and that is you can do that yourself, I suppose. But and as a solo artist, I would say that's definitely I can see the benefits of that myself and being able to do gigs and have wonderful experiences musically and collaborations and stuff because of that. But I think there is still a place for all of the traditional like radio and stuff. There's also absolute need for music venues because Goa couldn't have existed without the music venues that we had at the time. Um, and being able to sort of play to like three people. I mean, I know
Yeah.
I'm giving the reasons why maybe the model hasn't worked, but us performing to like a few people, but getting better as we got along, and sort of that lovely community of people who just love pitching up and listening to music, and that it's something we need. without
Yeah.
using this as a platform to harp on about how music venues are important, but they are.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
yeah, and I think that's changed, and I hope that we can address that. But I also love the fact that, we've got so much more technology in our bedrooms now. And so that means people can really experiment and see what they get come up with, and then collaborate, or, because music is collaborative, I think, a lot of the time.
Do you think the struggle for venues is a new thing? Because even when like Bow would have originally been around, a lot of venues had to rely on like corporate sponsorship in order to survive, and then there were still like a lot of smaller venues kind of closing. Do you think that issue is the same as it was back then, or do you think it's kind of exacerbated in terms of in terms of severity?
I think it is kind of, yeah, I think, by reading whatever's happening with the Music Venue Trust, it seems like it's pretty gnarly at the moment. But I think, yeah, I think in terms of the music industry, the way that people, one thing that we've really enjoyed seeing is the live shows, and what we weren't expecting was how well received they'd be, and what a joy it is to perform. And we've got a great band with us now, and like we've just gone around the southern states, and kind of like had a whale of a time performing to really cool people, and I don't think you can beat that. And I think that's something none of us were expecting was going to happen. So that's really.
In, in general, how do you find kind of like now that you're touring around a lot more? Because it seems to me that like the tours have gotten a lot like more consistent than when the band originally was around, and
Well, we
the
hardly did
opportunities are perhaps more
anything.
consistent. Yeah.
Like, so we're in the rehearsal studio. That's all we did.
So do you think like now that you're actually kind of getting to see um different cultures and different locations and different places in such a like really short span of time, do you think that's like in any way influencing you as an artist?
I'm sure it is. I haven't had a chance to sit down and kind of go, okay, what am I going to
Yeah,
write yet? I haven't had that chance yet. So we're away again, obviously, like in what, like,
a few weeks.
yeah, in 8 days or something like that. Yeah,
Oh
exactly.
wow.
So yeah, call me after that and tell me.
I will. I'll keep you to
Because yeah, I
that.
feel like, when you're traveling and touring or whatever, you process a lot, don't you? Because
Yeah.
you're seeing so many different things that you've never seen before, and we've been very fortunate, touch wood, that everybody we've met have been absolutely lovely, and tried really delicious food, and seen signs that say don't feed the alligators, and you know in America and Australia.
Oh,
Uh,
nice. The Australian
so
signs are upside down.
yeah, yeah. And just, yeah, so I guess you see a lot of musicians afterwards start writing about being on the road. I wonder if we'll end up like writing stuff about being on the road.
I want to ask then about Whiplash, which was your new album that came out back in October. Uh, what was the songwriting process for that like? Because from the outsider's perspective, you announced that the band be regrouping in 2023, and then I don't know, however long, like 15 months later or something, we had like the first record, the comeback record. So I was wondering, like, what was that timeline like in terms of actually writing all the songs and getting it out?
Well, we started writing it in 2023, and then we started recording it in February 24, on and off, finished it, and then we started releasing the singles, didn't we? And hang on, I've got the right timescale.
I
No,
think so.
I haven't even got the right timescale, have I? I don't know what we did, and I don't know when we did them. Um, what did we do? Maybe it was 2022. I don't know. Anyway, we recorded in 20, started recording in 2024, and then we released the album in October 24. So it's quite a small timeline, really.
Yeah.
Um, what did you ask me about the songwriting?
Well, I was just asking, did it feel kind of like rapid to you, or did it feel kind of more sluggish in terms of starting the album and getting it out? Because to me, like the turnaround rate feels very quick.
Yeah, I think we were really determined. So we were meeting weekly and songwriting, and then kind of like, and it was quite lovely. Like, we literally just came in, how you doing, and then started songwriting. And every now and then we would get for dinner or something, but like it was really, really focused. And I think, all of us have got sort of other lives and stuff. So we wanted to really just take this moment and just really focus in. And I think that probably ended up making us more, what's the word? Sensible with our time, I guess. So, so we got more out, whereas if we were not so focused, we probably would have taken about 5 years to.
Were the songs sort of backlog? Were the ideas you had individually and then kind of brought them together
Yeah, I
collectively?
think it
Yeah.
was it was a lot like that. I think Alex had quite a few, and then I brought in a few as well. And then yeah, so lyrically, I sort of think it was quite a challenge to write so quickly in that respect, because usually I take a lot longer, and I sort of with Boa, early Boa, I was reading voraciously and really inspired by the books that I read, and now I have no attention span. So if I could write about an Instagram story, probably that would be it.
The
So,
album, I was reading another interview with you, and I can't remember if it was you or one of the lads, but when you mentioned that, like the album is thematically at its core is about maturity and growth and divorce and relationships and just kind of like different life experiences that you've accrued
breakups,
during that time.
breakdowns, and divorces.
Breakdowns and divorces. Was there a thematic concept from the get-go, or is that just what organically came out?
Yeah, well, I split up with my ex during that time, so I was like, oh, look, I've got some fuel now. Here we go. But it was also loads of other things that were going on. So yeah, so those kind of all went into that. Um, I think actually Sinead O'Connor passed away during that time, and so some of the lyrics kind of just looked into. I can't even reference her properly in that sense. Like, I just that was in my mind. So what a wonderful person she was, and so
Yeah.
that kind of came into maybe some of the lyrics about being misunderstood or unrecognized, and you're sort of the meaning behind what you're trying to say is being sometimes deliberately obscured.
Yeah.
That kind of played in my mind quite a lot while we were sort of going through all of this, and we were actually recording at the time, and we were still half finishing writing some of the stuff while we were doing that. So I think that might have gone in there. And then obviously all the things with the pandemic, and I don't know, you can't really say, oh, this song is about this, but you know that in the back of your head it probably had a lot of that in there. And you know
Yeah,
yeah.
sure. No art is great devoid of context, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then once the album came out, I mean, you just went on the road with it. I was wondering what was that like in terms of like actually performing live for the first time. Well, obviously, I mean, you've been performing, as a solo artist, yeah, in those years, but as a band going back on the road as a collective, having worked in the studio and worked on this album for so long, what was that actually like to start
A
doing
huge
gigs again?
learning, a huge learning curve. And when the first show we did in Colours in Hoxton, we were using wedges, and then we went on to using inner ears,
Yeah,
and then I'm using like pedals, and now I'm using like what is it, a line six, whatever they call them.
yeah.
No. What do they call it? It is a line six, isn't it? It's
The
like a,
lines, the
yeah,
electronic pedals. Yeah.
yeah. And so
I
it's
can't
like,
I don't know the names of my offhand. I don't use them.
so it's to getting used to using that, getting used to using the dynamic of literally the onstage dynamic with inner ears was just such a different sort of beast. Because I was used to having the microphone almost down my throat, because in order to combat the sound of, well, Alex and even Stephen, really, they were quite loud. Was to sort of almost swallow the microphone, and then I have to learn not to do that now.
Yeah.
And just things like that. And yeah, so playing the electric guitar for me was quite a big thing, still is. I'm still learning, and I will always still be learning, I suppose. And I think for all of us, the touring, quite how exhausting it can be. And quite how to sort of manage the pacing of things. And I think a lot of it has been quite grueling actually for us. So that's played quite a large part in sort of some of the reframing of some of the touring going forward, just because we need to take a little moment.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that kind of like experience that you feel you didn't get in the initial run of the band because you know, as you said, the dates you would do were quite disparate, so it kind of just be a gig here and there. It wasn't necessarily like, you know, a month on the road and having to kind of like balance between, okay, how many days do we have to be performing, how many days do we have to take off, you know, for our own health, basically. So I was wondering, was that something that I don't know, you kind of like look back on, it's like, yeah, I wish I'd kind of known that previously.
I don't know. I think you kind of this, you know, you come off the tour and you go, right, I'm never doing that again. And then you're like, right, when's the next one?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a really funny thing because there's so many amazing things that happen when you're on tour. And you know, you've got a good gang with you. If you've got a good gang with you, then it's amazing. Um, and then you start kind of thinking, right, I can't wait for the next one. Let's try that place to have dinner or something like that, you know. Yeah. I mean, I got to perform at, you know, Prince's venue, First Avenue in Minneapolis, and
Yeah, it's a great place.
yeah, and just these cool places like 9:30 in Washington, DC, and I don't know. And then obviously we performed at Thekla and which is a boat in Bristol.
Oh yeah, I didn't know it was a boat.
Weekend.
I know the venue. I didn't know it was a boat.
Yeah, yeah. And no, I neither did I. And so I was, well, I obviously realized, and then we're starting to do this quite a lot. That's listing.
And suddenly you're in the sea.
I feel seasick. And then yeah, and Whelan's obviously is a famous venue as
Yeah.
well. So it just yeah, we get to be playing in places that have got history, like Band on the Wall, of course, in Manchester. So
Mhm.
yeah, 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 it's very cool.
Well, actually, the tour you did, the tour that's coming up, actually, compared to the tour you did back in the autumn, you know, obviously the venues you're playing are much bigger, and you know, I was wondering, was the initial run of shows that you did to coincide with the record, the smaller venues you were playing, was that kind of a means of acclimatizing to, you know, going on the road again, or was it kind of like to, I don't know, gauge interest? Because I think like when you've been away, it's kind of like, well, where do we position ourselves, I guess, in terms of a live setting where, I guess like was a sort of a trial run, I guess, to kind of gauge reception.
I think it's exactly that. I think, you know, none of us knew whether we'd be able to cope with touring. Jury's still out on that. And none of us knew if we, you know, if we would sell out a venue. We had no idea at all. And we had no idea like whether people liked our t-shirts or CDs or anything like that either. So all of it is kind of like been quite a delight to find that people are really enjoy our music and really want to come and see us play. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and on this tour that's coming up, I just want to plug, you're playing the National Stadium here on June 14th.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to ask, like when the idea for like a new UK and Ireland tour came about, and you were playing these like bigger venues, was that something that you were uncertain of, or were you like, no, that feels right?
In sorry, say again, like what the next tour you
When you
mean?
were yeah, the tour is coming up, so when you know the venues were kind of growing, because like for example like in the Dublin show, you originally played Whelan's back in October, now you're playing National Stadium, and that's like a 1600 jump. So I was wondering, did you feel like confidence, like yeah, that's right, or was there like trepidation kind of playing these bigger venues? How did you feel about
I
that?
don't know, Aaron. Let's see after the show. I
I
mean,
think you'd be fine. Well, a lot of dates have already sold out, so.
oh, is it? Okay. Oh God, that's great. Um, yeah, I think you know, it's inevitable. You hope that you want to get bigger. Having said that, though, Whelan's was fab. So I don't know. Yeah, I guess we'll see.
And I guess one final thing I wanted to ask before I let you get on with your day, you know, obviously when you know you were grouped and you were saying that the songs kind of motivated a lot of this the regrouping. So I was wondering, you know, when you're kind of like going on the road and you're trying to like get people engaged with you know, with the new music you're crafting as well as the stuff from Twilight, as you mentioned, was there any fear, I guess, that like people would turn up and just want to hear Duvet, or did you think like no, people are is equally interested in everything we're doing?
We've been really lucky that you know, people have when they come to the shows, they've really enjoyed all the music, and a lot of them seem to know all the songs as well. And I don't know whether that's because they're getting ready to come to a show because they've heard Duvet and now they've got involved in the rest of the album, or what, but certainly that seems to be the case. And of course, everybody, if they're familiar with that song and that's how they've met the band, then that's what they're going to be like happy to hear. But I think we've got quite a mixed bag. So we've had people who knew us right from the start. They've had people who've met us through the anime, and then there's people who've met us through the viral side of things. And everybody consumes it all differently. But I think the main thing of the audience is that they enjoy that level of fragility and hardness of the songs that we have, and the sentiment behind them is very earnest. And I think that you know. And that attracts people who I think are kind of willing to hear, everything. They have that sense of curiosity as well. So I just think we've got a really lovely audience, and I think they really do seem to respond to all of the songs really well. So
Um,
again, let's see how we go after National Stadium.
I think
Mm.
the final thing I'll ask is when you guys regrouped, I mean, was there any thought of like continuity between the previous two records, or was it just organically used wrote and the sound that kind of came out of it was just naturally what you three would have made together?
I think all three of those things that you just mentioned. I think we definitely, didn't want to sort of go into a sort of, I don't know, a completely different style of music,
Sure,
we could
you
do
didn't
it.
want to make a death metal record.
Well, but we've also, because there were only three of us, we were able to kind of explore maybe some other influences that we all liked. So we like, Depeche Mode and people like that. So there's a slightly more new wavy twist things, maybe a little bit. And Susie and the Banshees,
Yep.
obviously. And The Cure and Smashing Pumpkins. And yeah, so I think we were sort of like, throwing in a bit of that as well, maybe slightly different. And so even though we were conscious that where we came from is this, and we were referencing that in our minds a lot because it is us, even to the point of like, oh no, we've already written that.
Yeah.
So so you do gravitate, you do default to certain things and licks and stuff, but yeah, and I don't think it was completely like really conscious. I think some of it was intuitive, but yeah, there was some thinking about trying not to be too different. Yeah.
Well, obviously, as you mentioned there, I mean, the project is now a three-piece, and at one time there was five members at a time. So, have you found the sort of just doing it as a trio has been in any way restrictive, or is it just as freeing as it's ever been?
I think there's when we first started there were six of us actually, and
Oh,
and
sorry.
everyone was sort of scrabbling over each other for space. Maybe I say scrabbling. I'm sure everyone would disagree and say it was beautiful. But the thing is that what happened was we ended up coming up with this lovely sound from all six of us. And I love how broad that sonic landscape is. And so, there is a part of me that does miss that. But I think we've now got sort of amazing strings and things going on, and amazing performers with us as well who build that, and they've made it their own as well. So um I think even our live shows are even more exciting now because than they might have been if it was just us three, because we've kind of always wanted that bigger sound of more people. So I don't think we've completely left that behind, which is nice. So I
Perfect.
guess we kind of come going forward, but taking these new things with us, yeah, and a little bit of a nod to the past.
Well, that is my last question. Is what is the future for both?
I have no idea.
Are you taking it kind of casually and just sort of letting what happens
Yeah,
happens?
yeah, I think so. I think it's the
I
right
think
thing.
that's a healthy attitude to have for her, It's like rather than putting too much pressure, too much strain, it's like again, it kind of harkens back, I guess, to sort of the how arbitrary it can be, just like something going viral for a song that you wrote like 25 years ago.
Yeah, and I think as well, you want to write something that's really meaningful. And I'm not very good at sort of pushing myself lyrically if I'm not feeling something.
Sure.
I think as it stands, I really do want to take some time and process, like, what the hell has just happened these last 3 years, and hoping that, as we're going, starting to write again, and kind of like what will that look like? So I think I think we'll see how it goes.
And will your solo career exist too, or is Bo taking up all your time now?
Well, definitely Bo has taken a lot of the time, and I haven't done really any solo music shows at all in the last 2 years, I think. And I don't want to confuse things either, but I think that's the thing when you start writing again, it's like I don't know if it's going to be Boa music or solo music or what, I have no idea. So we'll see. If it has an ocarina in it, it will probably be solo.
Okay, that's the criteria. Well, thanks very much for your time, Jasmine. It's really nice chatting with you. I just want to ask, is there anything you would like to add before we wrap up? Anything
Are
I
you
didn't
coming to
cover?
our show?
I would love to, yes.
Absolutely. Well, good. I look forward to seeing you there then.
Perfect. Thanks very much for your time, Jasmine. Enjoy
All
the
right.
rest of your day, and best of luck packing for the tour.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. We're an independent venture run by yours truly, and as I said at the beginning, liking, rating, subscribing, and sharing really helps us out a lot. If you're feeling extra generous, we do have a PayPal donation link in the episode description, but don't feel obligated, of course. We've also begun releasing occasional exclusive episodes on Spotify, so subscribe there if you'd be interested in hearing those. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.